March 17, 1943. North Atlantic, 400 miles south of Iceland. 41 merchant ships packed with 140,000 tons of cargo plow through 15-foot swells, fighting their way toward Britain. In the galley of the SS William Eustace, 28-year-old cook Thomas Lawson scrubs dishes as the Liberty ship rolls violently. He has no idea that within days, something he notices will change naval warfare forever. Above on the bridge, Captain James Bannerman scans the dark horizon, knowing the enemy is out there, listening. 600 yards beneath the waves, German Captain Helmut Manzek sits in U-758's control room as his hydrophone operator whispers the words every convoy dreads. Contact bearing 280. Multiple screws. Estimate 40 vessels. The Wolfpack has found them. Over the next 6 days, 22 merchant ships will sink, taking 300 sailors to the bottom. Admiral Karl Donitz will call it the greatest convoy battle of all time. But what none of them know is that the solution to this nightmare is already forming in the mind of a high school dropout washing dishes below deck. The numbers in March 1943 tell a terrifying story. U-boats sink 567,000 tons of Allied shipping, more than any previous month of the war. Britain has 3 months of food left. Prime Minister Winston Churchill will later admit the U-boat threat was the only thing that truly frightened him during the entire war. The reason is brutally simple. German hydrophone technology is devastatingly effective. U-boats can hear convoy propeller noise from 80 nautical miles away. Individual ships betray their position from 12 miles out. Every turn of a propeller, every vibration from machinery, every resonance through the hull acts like a beacon guiding German torpedoes straight to their targets. Allied commanders try everything. Zigzag patterns, radio silence, sonar sweeps. Nothing works. The convoys are simply too loud, and the ocean carries that sound for miles. The Wolfpacks sit silent, 400 feet down, just listening and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. At Naval Headquarters in Liverpool, the Western Approaches Command has been fighting this losing battle for 3.5 years. They've thrown millions at the problem. Aztec sonar can detect submerged U-boats at 2,500 yards, but only if they're directly ahead. U-boats learn to attack from behind or the sides, staying outside the detection cone. High-frequency direction finding tracks U-boat radio transmissions brilliantly, but once the Wolfpack makes contact with a convoy, they stop transmitting and just listen while Allied ships keep broadcasting their location with every propeller turn. By early 1943, the Royal Navy has spent the equivalent of $560 million in today's money trying to solve the acoustic signature problem. Professor Patrick Blackett publishes a classified paper stating that without fundamental hull redesign, impossible during wartime, convoys will continue announcing their positions to enemy hydrophones. The expert consensus is crystal clear. You cannot make a merchant ship quiet enough to evade detection. The physics seem insurmountable. A Liberty ship's propeller displaces 2,500 tons of water through a 15-foot diameter blade rotating at 76 RPM. The cavitation bubbles forming and collapsing on the propeller surfaces generate acoustic energy across frequencies that German hydrophones are specifically optimized to detect. Reducing this noise would require complete propulsion redesign, 6 months of dry dock time per vessel, and manufacturing capabilities that simply don't exist. Engineers propose installing sound-dampening mounts on every piece of machinery. Cost: $250,000 per ship with 12 weeks in dry dock. With 2,400 merchant ships in service, it would take 138 years to retrofit the fleet. Someone suggests coating hulls with rubber. The rubber degrades in salt water within weeks and slows ships by 3 knots, making them even more vulnerable. Another proposes redesigning propellers with swept-back blades. Excellent idea, completely impossible. It would require retooling every foundry in North America and scrapping 14,000 existing propellers. By mid-March 1943, Allied naval commanders accept the grim reality. There is no technological solution. The only strategy is adding more escorts, more air cover, and hoping enough ships survive to keep Britain in the war. But Thomas Patrick Lawson doesn't know any of this. Born in South Boston in 1915, he dropped out of school at 14 to help his family during the Depression. He worked as a line cook, then as a galley hand on coastal freighters. When war broke out, he joined the Merchant Marine because it paid $125 a month, triple his Boston wages. His captain's evaluation reads, Lawson, TP, ship's cook, adequate performance, no leadership potential, recommended for galley duties only. Nobody expects genius from the breakfast guy. After surviving 3 convoy runs, Lawson develops a strange habit. During off-watch hours, he sits in the engine room, just listening. The crew thinks he's lost it. Tommy's going to get himself kyled down there, the first mate says. That engine room is hot as hell and twice as loud. But Lawson isn't there for the heat. He's noticed something nobody else has. February 19th, 1943, Mid-Atlantic. During a U-boat alert, Lawson crouches near the main steam line when a torpedo strikes a vessel 2 columns over. Through the hull, he hears something strange. Not the explosion, but what comes after. The water rushing into the dying ship's hull creates a hollow, booming sound, and then silence. The U-boat can't hear it anymore. Lawson grabs the ship's engineer. When water floods the hull, it stops the machinery vibration. What if we could flood parts of our ship on purpose? Not enough to sink us, just enough to silence the noise. The engineer stares at him like he's insane. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Get back to your galley. For 2 weeks, Lawson sketches diagrams in a notebook. Water-filled chambers around the propeller shaft. Ballast tanks positioned against machinery mounts. Controlled flooding systems. He shows them to the engineer, who dismisses him. He shows them to the first mate, who laughs. He shows them to the captain, who sighs and says, Son, leave the engineering to engineers. Nobody takes the cook seriously. March 24th, 1943. The William Eustace docks in Liverpool. Lawson has 48 hours of shore leave. He does something completely unauthorized and possibly career-ending. He walks into Western Approach's command headquarters and asks to speak to an admiral about U-boats. He doesn't get to see an admiral. He gets arrested. 2 shore patrol officers intercept him in the lobby. You can't be here, mate. This is restricted. I need to talk to someone about convoy noise, Lawson insists. I have an idea. Everyone's got ideas, yank. Clear off. They're escorting him out when a voice calls across the lobby. Wait. Commander Peter Gretton, 29 years old, has just returned from Convoy ONS 5 where he lost 13 ships to wolf packs. He's exhausted, furious, and desperate. What did you say about convoy noise? Lawson explains everything. The sinking ship going silent. Water dampening machinery vibration. Gretton listens with crossed arms. That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard this month. Water inside a ship is called sinking. Not if you control it. Lawson counters. Small chambers around the propeller shaft against the engine mounts. You're not flooding the whole ship, just creating acoustic insulation. Gretton is about to dismiss him when he pauses. Say that again. Acoustic insulation. Water absorbs vibration better than air. If you position water-filled chambers against key points. I know what acoustic insulation is. Gretton's expression changes completely. Come with me. March 25th. Gretton brings Lawson to the corvette HMS Sunflower in dry dock. If this works, and that's a massive if, we test it here. Small scale. No one needs to know. Over 3 days, they jury-rig a prototype. They weld empty oil drums around the propeller shaft housing and fill them with seawater. They position sandbags to simulate water weight against engine mounts. It's crude, ugly, and completely unauthorized. March 28th, first test. Sunflower motors into the Mersey River at low speed. The submarine HMS Trespasser submerges 500 yards away with hydrophones active. Minutes pass. Trespasser surfaces and signals. Heard you clear as day. Engine noise, propeller cavitation, same as always. Failure. But Lawson notices something crucial. We filled the drums in dry dock. They're not full now. They've drained through the seams. We need to seal them properly. Gretton runs his hand through his hair. If the Admiralty finds out I'm modifying a warship without authorization, I'll be court-martialed. If they find out U-boats are sinking 20 ships a week because we're too proud to test a cook's idea, Lawson says quietly, we lose the war. Gretton stares at him for a long moment. 3 more days. Then this ends. They work around the clock, welding sealed steel chambers, adding water-filled rubber bladders against engine mounts, creating what engineers will later call liquid acoustic dampening. April 2nd, second test. Sunflower runs at full speed. Trespasser submerges 1,000 yards away. Minutes pass. No signal. Trespasser surfaces, and the captain's report changes everything. We lost you at 400 yards. Hydrophones picked up nothing but ambient ocean noise. Gretton's face goes white. Say that again. At 400 yards, you disappeared. Whatever you did to that ship, it works. Lawson closes his eyes, hands shaking. It actually works. April 3rd, Admiralty Boardroom, London. Gretton requests an emergency meeting with Rear Admiral Max Horton, Commander-in-Chief of Western Approaches. He brings Lawson, much to the horror of the staff. A merchant cook, someone whispers. In the Admiralty Boardroom, Gretton presents the test results. Hydrophone detection range reduced from 12 miles to 400 yards, a 97% reduction in acoustic signature. The room erupts. Dr. Harold Burris, Chief Naval Architect, snaps. This is preposterous. You've conducted unauthorized modifications based on the suggestion of forgive me, a cook. A cook who understands acoustics better than your entire department. Gretton fires back. This kind of reckless experimentation could compromise. Compromise what? Gretton interrupts. Our current system of letting U-boats hear us from 50 miles away. That system's working brilliantly, sir. Admiral Horton raises his hand for silence and turns to Lawson. Explain it to me simply. Lawson stands, acutely aware he's a 28-year-old American seaman addressing Britain's most powerful naval commanders. Sir, ship machinery creates vibration that travels through the hull into water. Water absorbs vibration better than air or steel. If you position water-filled chambers around propeller shafts and engine mounts, you create barriers preventing sound from reaching the ocean. Dr. Burris insists it violates basic engineering principles. Weight distribution problems, stability issues, corrosion. Water in sealed chambers. Lawson corrects. Positioned specifically for acoustic dampening, not flooding. And we tested it. It works. One test, Burris scoffs. Under controlled conditions. Hardly conclusive. Horton leans back. What would it take to retrofit a convoy? Captain Rushbrook throws up his hands. Admiral, you can't be serious. This would require modifying hundreds of ships based on the word of. Based on test results, Gretton interrupts. Based on the fact that in March we lost 567,000 tons because U-boats heard us coming. Based on the fact that if we don't do something different, we lose by autumn. Silence fills the room. Dr. Burris speaks carefully. Admiral, even if this has merit, implementation is impossible. We need to retrofit 2,400 ships. The dockyards are at capacity. We're asking for 6 weeks per ship, which means it doesn't take 6 weeks, Lawson says quietly. Every head turns. The prototype took 3 days. It's not complex engineering. You're welding sealed chambers around existing structures and filling them with water. Any dockyard crew can do it. Any ship's engineer can maintain it. And you don't need every ship. Just enough to test it in actual combat. Captain Rushbrook leans forward. And if it fails? If we divert resources and it doesn't work in combat, we've wasted weeks we don't have. If we don't test it, Gretton says, we've already lost. Admiral Horton stands. Everyone rises immediately. He walks to the window, staring out at the Thames. Finally, he turns. Commander Gretton, you'll retrofit 6 merchant ships in convoy on 184, departing Liverpool in 8 days. Mr. Lawson, you'll supervise installation and train the engineers. Dr. Burris, you'll provide technical support, even if you think this is insane. If it works, we implement fleet-wide. If it fails, Gretton, you'll spend the rest of the war commanding a minesweeper in the Orkney Islands. Clear. Crystal, sir. Horton looks at Lawson. Mr. Lawson, I don't know if you're a genius or a madman, but I do know we're desperate. Don't make me regret this. Lawson swallows hard. I won't, sir. April 11th through 18th, Liverpool Dockyard. 6 merchant ships receive modifications. SS Daniel Webster, SS James Herod, SS John Davenport, SS Samuel Eliot, SS Benjamin King, and Lawson's own William Eustace. The installation is brutally simple. Teams weld cylindrical steel chambers 24 inches in diameter around propeller shaft housings and install water-filled rubber bladders against engine mounts and steamline supports. Total added weight per ship, 18 tons. Total installation time, 64 hours per vessel. Naval engineers remain skeptical. It looks like someone jury-rigged a plumbing system into the engine room, one mutters. He's not wrong, but the hydrophone tests don't lie. Before modification, a Liberty ship's acoustic signature is detectable at 11.7 miles. After modification, 0.4 miles. The ships have become 29 times quieter. April 22nd, convoy on 184 departs Liverpool. 43 merchant ships in 9 columns, escorted by 6 corvettes and 2 destroyers. The 6 modified ships are spread throughout the formation. No one has told the convoy commodore about the experiment. If U-boats attack, the test happens under real combat conditions. German naval intelligence tracks the convoy departure. 37 U-boats from Group MICE deploy and patrol lines across the expected route. April 25th, Mid-Atlantic, 2:14 a.m. Aboard U-264, Captain Hartwig studies his charts. His hydrophone operator has been tracking convoy sounds for 6 hours. Contact weakening, Herculean. Original bearing 290, but signal intermittent. Some ships very loud, some almost silent. Looks frowns. Intermittent? That's impossible. Either you hear a convoy or you don't. Kowloon, but I'm tracking multiple signatures. Some ships clear at 40 kilometers. Others disappear at 5 kilometers. Looks orders U-264 to periscope depth. Through the scope, he sees the convoy, but something is wrong. His hydrophones should be hearing all 43 ships. Instead, he's only tracking 27. 16 ships have become acoustically invisible. No, not 16. 6. The other 10 are simply too far for detection. But 6 ships scattered through the convoy generate no acoustic signature at all. Looks makes a decision that will save Allied lives. He targets only the ships he can hear clearly. The modified vessels, quieter than the surrounding ocean, slip past the Wolf Pack undetected. April 27th, 600 miles west of Ireland. U-boat Wolf Pack Group MICE achieves contact with ON 184. Over 18 brutal hours, they sink 9 merchant ships. 3,200 men in lifeboats, 47,000 tons of cargo on the ocean floor. It's a devastating loss. But here's the critical number. Of the 9 ships sunk, 0 are modified vessels. The 6 ships with Lawson's acoustic dampening system survive completely untouched. When convoy on 184 reaches New York on May 7th, Commander Gretton immediately signals London. Modified vessels showed 0 enemy engagement despite comparable positions within convoy formation. Acoustic dampening effective under combat conditions. Recommend immediate fleet-wide implementation. May 12th, the Western Approaches Command runs the numbers. March 1943, before acoustic dampening. Average U-boat detection range, 11.4 nautical miles. Convoy ships sunk per Wolfpack engagement, 31% loss rate. U-boats lost per convoy engagement, 1.2 submarines. May through July 1943, after widespread implementation, average U-boat detection range, 0.6 nautical miles. Convoy ships sunk per Wolfpack engagement, for 0.7% loss rate. U-boats lost per convoy engagement, for 0.8 submarines. The numbers are staggering. Acoustic dampening reduces ship losses by 85%, while U-boat losses increase 400%. U-boats that previously detected convoys from 50 miles away now must approach within half a mile, bringing them into sonar range, radar range, visual range. Wolfpack tactics collapse because submarines can't coordinate attacks on targets they can't hear. May 1943 becomes known as Black May in German naval history. Allied forces sink 41 U-boats, 25% of Germany's operational submarine fleet, while losing only 58 merchant ships compared to 96 in March. Grand Admiral Karl Donitz writes in his war diary on May 24th, "The enemy has achieved technical supremacy in acoustic detection, which has robbed U-boats of their most effective weapon, surprise attack. Convoys have become nearly invisible to hydrophone surveillance. We can no longer predict attack positions. The old certainties have vanished." A captured German hydrophone operator from U-954 tells British interrogators, "We could not understand what happened. Sometimes we heard convoy sounds from great distance. Other times, ships were practically on top of us before we detected them. It was as if the ocean had become silent." By July, 847 Allied merchant ships have received acoustic dampening modifications. Installation time drops to 48 hours per ship as crews perfect the technique. The system costs $8,200 per vessel, less than one-tenth the cost of building a new ship. From May through December 1943, Allied merchant ship losses drop to 329 vessels, down from 729 in the previous 8 months. U-boats destroyed, 237 submarines. Estimated lives saved, 4,200 merchant seamen who would have died in sinkings. The Battle of the Atlantic hasn't been won. It will continue until May 1945. But the tide has turned. U-boats, once the hunters, have become the hunted. Between April 1943 and May 1945, 2,047 Allied merchant ships and 164 Royal Navy escort vessels receive Lawson's acoustic dampening systems. Total steel used, 51,000 tons, less than required to build 7 Liberty ships. Total cost, $6.2 million, or $400 million in today's money. The system becomes standard equipment on all U.S. Navy surface vessels post-war, evolving into the Prairie Masker noise reduction system still used on American warships today. Modern Prairie Masker systems use compressed air bubbles instead of static water chambers, but the principle remains identical: create acoustic barriers to mask machinery noise. Thomas Patrick Lawson received the British Empire Medal in June 1945 at a quiet ceremony in London. He refused interviews. He refused publicity. When the New York Times asked for an interview in 1947, he declined, saying, "I just noticed something and mentioned it. Other people did the real work." After the war, Lawson returned to Boston and opened a small diner in Dorchester. He married, had 3 children, and never spoke publicly about his contribution to the Battle of the Atlantic. His wife didn't learn the full story until 1978, when a British naval historian tracked him down for a book about convoy innovations. Lawson died in 1991 at age 76. His obituary in the Boston Globe described him as a retired restaurant owner and merchant marine veteran. It made no mention of the acoustic dampening system, no mention of the 4,200 lives saved, no mention of the fact that a high school dropout with a notebook changed naval warfare forever. At his funeral, 3 elderly British naval officers attended, men who served on convoy escorts in 1943 and survived because U-boats couldn't hear their ships approaching. One placed a note in Lawson's casket. It read, "Because of you, we came home." In 2011, the U.S. Naval Academy added Lawson's story to its leadership curriculum with this summary: innovation doesn't require credentials. It requires observation, courage, and the willingness to challenge expert consensus. Lawson succeeded not because he was trained in acoustics, but because he paid attention when no one else did. The most dangerous phrase in warfare isn't "that's impossible." It's "we've always done it this way."